Hi, this is Tamika Chambers with Create a Generational Love Cycle. And today is March 14th, 2022, and we are just moving on through March. And so this year, I decided to start the year off with life principles I learned from my mother. My mother left my father, who was abusing her physically, mentally, socially, feeling as if she was alone until shortly after her father's transition. My mother decided to leave our father. She said it was going to be either him or me. And she chose to be a mother. She chose to be around for us. And so she packed our bags, three children under the age of 5, one um, about a year old, if not less. And we traveled via Greyhound bus from Memphis, Tennessee to East St. Louis, Illinois. And for approximately about a year, we stayed in the back room, one single room with two beds, a full and a twin size bed. My two brothers slept in a full bed. My mom and I slept in for approximately a year. See, we didn't have much. My mother had approximately $4,000 that she had in her pocket while leaving my father. She had two suitcases, and again, three children under the age of 5. Eventually, my mother, with the help of a friend, a family friend that has been there throughout our years, found a house that was right across the street there in East St. Louis. And it became our home for about 9 years or so. And it was, to many people, considered a shack, or even family members called our house a shack. But I felt like we had everything and more that we needed. I felt like we had a roof over our head. We had food to eat. We eventually had two refrigerators. They weren't new, but they were working refrigerators and a deep freezer that kept food. We had a washer and dryer. We had beds, TVs. My mother would rent from Bert's Rent to Own to have TVs and VCR. We had one. Everybody had one. I had one. My brother Richard had one, and Demetrius, well, he would get one later. He would always go in Richard's room and watch it, or in the dining room. And we had, multicolored straggly carpet throughout the house, orange furniture. If you are some of the family members, you remember this, right? And so we may not have had a lot according to people. And of course, we were on the poor scale. We were considered poor, but I didn't think we were poor. We had family. We had our mother, who, if she told you anything, she kept her word. You never had to, when one day a pastor had said, when he found out I had been raised by a single parent, he said, "Oh, you had an unstable home." And that did not settle right in my spirit, because I felt like we had a stable home. I knew where my mother was, that even he had mentioned there were times where his mother would leave and do her own thing. And I felt like our mother was there in the morning. She was there at night. She made sure we had plenty of food to eat. She had her life, but I felt like we were the center of her life. That although she struggled to pay bills and, borrow from Paul to pay Peter, she would say that. We had my mother's word. She said, "If I tell you something, you know it's done. I'm going to do it." And I've referenced before that my mother's principles were the gateway to me, my healing, gateway to me seeking the truth in life, becoming a student of life, and the gateway for me learning about a higher power, whom my mother was called God. She believed that even though she didn't know what was going to happen upon leaving my father, She believed that we would be taken care of, that she was doing the right thing to take her children out of an abusive environment. And so often my mother would tell us stuff, and I wouldn't be anxious about it. I wouldn't say, Mom, 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 are you going to do it, do it, do it? Because she had already trained us enough that if she said it, it was done. Now, there were times where she may have said we were going to get in trouble, but my mom has such a forgiving heart. She didn't like whoopings. She didn't like to whoop us. If anything, she spoke to our heart and talked to us and would tell us other things like, if you're sorry, if you're really sorry, then you're going to stop it. And so my mother would often hold us accountable for our behaviors and ask us, why are we doing what we're doing, which made us go inside and seek why we were doing it. Whether we stop doing it or whether we continue to do it, she helped to raise consciousness within us by questioning us. She helped to raise consciousness within us by living by principles, not in putting us in like a prison, but in freeing us in a way that it reduced anxiety. It reduced, just worrying and anger. It was more of peace that came because if she said it, she was going to do it. And she was like that growing up. If she told us she was going to take us to the park, if she told us she was going to take us to McDonald's, if she told us she was going to take us to Cahokia Mounds, if she told us that we weren't going anywhere on Thursdays until the yard was clean. And actually, she would say Thursday's Pier, we weren't going anywhere. That was yard day. And even if we got done early, we still weren't going anywhere. That was specific for yard day. And my mom kept that to a T. She did not budge. She did not move when it came to that. She did not move at all. And she was like that with her grandchildren. If she promised my brother's daughter something, she would say, we're doing it. And she would not, the other thing is that my mother would not just tell you stuff just to tell you. Because a lot of people will tell you stuff to make it sound good, to make it look good. I'm just going to tell you that. And I've been around, I'm sure you have, whether it's coworkers, friends, quote unquote friends, coworkers, acquaintances, employers, whether they've told you stuff and you go back and you're wanting to, reap the benefit of what they said. And they're like, well, what are you talking about? I was just telling you that. I was just saying that. Yeah, I'm going to do it. And then they never get around to doing it. There are so many Bible verses that reference God and being faithful and just. And he's not like human beings, meaning that he keeps his word. If he says something, then he's going to do it. And that's what I often tell people about my mother. If she says something, she's going to do it. And there have been times, when I was younger, I would try my best that if I said something, I was going to do it. And I would do that with my niece. If I said I was going to give her money, no matter what happened, then I was going to do it. Or I came back around to it and said, oh, I got to do that. And I find myself even going back to this principle with work, with writing, that if I said it, I need to do it. And it's not about feeling guilty or beating yourself up, but it's about keeping your word as much as possible because it's integrity. And I know many people say, well, I have a right to change my mind. But I feel like this, when you say something, you're speaking from the heart. It should not be just emotions. Oh, I feel good today, so I'm going to promise you the heart, the moon, the stars, the rivers, the oceans. No, really, when you say something and you mean it, you take into consideration many things. The person's feelings. What is the right thing to do? You take that in consideration. So when it comes time to do it, you probably already have a plan. More than likely, you'll have a plan to carry it out and you'll just do it. We have leaders that promise us stuff, senators and presidents. I'm going to do this if you elect me. I'm going to do this, this, and this, and this. And then we fall back on, oh, well, they have a right to change their mind. They're just promising stuff. And we should not look at leaders as they're just saying stuff to get in office. But when we look at leaders, we're looking we're not listening just to the words, but we're listening with our hearts. We're looking at their actions, Mama would say. We're looking at their actions. Do they really mean what they say? Because to me, that is being more like God, more like the image we were created in. Because he said he created us in his image. So integrity is not far from us, meaning what you say and say what you mean. Mean what you say and say what you mean. That if we can hold ourselves to that, there will be less probably gossiping, less empty promises, that we will take in consideration deep thought before we speak. The vile tongue, the tongue that gets us in trouble, lashes at people. That if we consider with our heart the emotions, the feelings, the individual journeys, what people have been through, then we're less likely to make those empty promises. We will become faithful and just. Our words will become law, because they will say, if she said it, it's going to be done. Because that's the type of person or child, individual that you have raised. When you create a generational love cycle, you first become the integrity. That your word is law. If you mean something, many times, often I have said, no, I promised that. Cameron, he wanted to make pizza rolls. He had found a few recipes. We made hash browns this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, and pizza rolls. And it had gone on late. I didn't want to do it. I was tired. Sundays are more like relaxed day. And I had told my son it was too late to do it. It was later in the evening. And my husband had said, of course, he put his money in, how late is it? And I said, you know what? I did promise him that I would do it. So we at least got the bread done for our recipe yesterday. That as a parent, our children are often listening to us, watching us. And we want to know, remember, and I forget where I heard that the branch is not too far from the tree. That if we have children that are not keeping their word, that are making empty promises, where are they getting that from? Because eventually they become adults that do not keep their word, say empty promises. And so again, it all starts with us. And it all starts with, what principles are you going to live by? What principles will you teach your children so that they can teach your children's children, their children's children, and children, children, children? A legacy is what I'm talking about. This is how we make the world better. We teach, we live by principles, not to confine us, but to free us up from all of that darkness of anger and hostility that can come when people make empty promises. When you tell somebody you're going to do it and you decide not to do it, choose not to do it. The vengefulness, the fear, because mommy said she was going to do it and she's not going to do it. So can I really count on mommy or daddy? And so I just want to leave you that. How does it apply to creating a generational love cycle? And I think I've pretty much shared that. We want children with integrity. We want to be integrity. Because what good is success? And you see all these people, you have suicide rates that are going up. You have when people have lost it all and are lost much, when people do not do what they say they're going to do, businesses. There's so much that can happen when we do not hold ourselves responsible and accountable to what we say to others, what we say to ourselves. So, thank you so much for listening to that. My mother's principle that if I tell you it's done, I'm going to do it. You don't have to worry about it. Can we really say that to our children? Can we really say that to our employees, our employer, our friends, and our associates? Now, what I do want to share in the next minute or so is that I received my book, I Love You, Mom, that is by Blythe Daniel and her mother, Helen McIntosh. And I will be giving away a copy of that book this week on my blog, tamikaschambers.com. So I will put some links in my link in the intro or paragraph about this podcast. And I also will include some of the Bible verses that I didn't talk about. Psalm 71:22, Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 9, 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 9, and Numbers 23:19, which reminds me that again, God is not human, but he made us in his image. And also to Jeremiah 29:11 is that God's promise is to give us hope in a future. So even if things look bleak, you guys, right now, if you're going through a storm, storms refine us. Storms help bring out the best in us. That if you just, like my mother would tell us, live another day. You never know what tomorrow may bring unless you are there to see it. So I don't know what all you're going through. I know what I've been through. I know my experience with pain. And I know my mother helped me to be here today because she would tell us to live another day. And because her word, I believed when she said stuff, and I believed her principles because she was a woman of integrity. Until next time, this is Tamika Chambers with Create a Generational Love Cycle. Take care. Make this lifetime great because you still can.